Hi, I'm Josh Vogel, filming the fourth, I think it's the fourth issue of the Sloth Report video log. That was a lie. It's actually the fifth issue of the Sloth Report video log. This week, I got a couple requests from people on the RBJJ board at Reddit, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu board, about tackling this in my white belt tips section thing, tackling the subject of how can a white belt avoid being a spaz. So this is a difficult question. Spazzing is kind of this nebulous, poorly defined thing, and it's poorly defined because it's really hard to define. And there's a couple reasons behind this. One is that what is spazzy to one person is normal to another person. So, for example, if you know somebody that you think is a spaz, if you talk to them, they probably don't think they're a spaz. In their head, they might think that they're practically catatonic, super relaxed, like a Zen monk rolling. But to you, they might feel like you're getting mauled by a wildcat, right? So come into an understanding between two people about what is spazzing and what is not spazzing is very hard, because what I think is spazzing, somebody else might not think is spazzing. The spaz themselves might not think that they're spazzing. I might be overly sensitive about certain things. Like, for example, I've had eye injuries, I've had neck injuries, I've had lower back injuries, I've had shoulder injuries, I've had knee injuries, I've had ankle injuries. I got a tooth knocked out. So some of those things, like my eyes, for example, if somebody does something really quick and explosive repeatedly, and I feel like their fingers are coming really close to my eyeballs over and over again during the course of a match, because I'm overly sensitive about my eyes, I might think, damn, that dude's a fucking spaz. But maybe they're really not. Maybe they're actually going at a normal pace. The techniques that they're doing are bringing their hands close to my eyes. Like, maybe the grip fighting that they're doing gets a little bit too close for comfort for me, and maybe I'm overreacting to them. Or maybe I'm reacting fine and they're just a nut job and they're spazzing and going nuts. So the first issue is figuring out how to decide if somebody really is a spaz or not, right? So I think getting a general consensus amongst your training partners is a good way to do this. Is kind of the only accurate way to do this, because, like, if 3 people think somebody's a spaz and 5 people think the person is not a spaz, it can give you some insight into maybe whether you're overreacting or not. If you think you might be spazzing as a white belt, I think the best tip I can give is try and get feedback from your partners. So if you ask your training partners, you ask your teacher, am I spazzy, am I a spaz, and they might put it very diplomatically, but you want to get a clear answer out of them. Am I a spaz, yes or no? And then you can kind of go from there. Like, if they say, you know, maybe you use too much energy doing this or too much energy doing that, take their advice. If they tell you to slow down, if you're hearing that repeatedly from people, like, listen dude, slow down, listen dude, slow down, then that's a good sign that you might be what other people consider a spaz. So my advice is get feedback from people, be humble enough to listen to the feedback, take it into consideration, don't let it hurt your feelings, just use it as a tool to improve your training. And if you listen to people more experienced than you, a lot of the time the feedback will make your training better in the short term and the long term. So then the second point is trying to define what is a spaz. If you ask some people what a spaz is, they'll say something like, well, it's somebody who uses too much strength. And I made a video about this a while ago I don't think strength is the culprit, because strength is just your ability to generate force, your muscle's ability to generate force. So I think what people are really talking about is explosiveness and aggression. So don't think about strength, just think about explosiveness, aggression, and potential injury to your training partners. Those are the three things to focus on, I think, for defining a spaz. So one of the best definitions that I've ever heard is actually from the Reddit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu board. I don't remember who posted it, and I wasn't able to find the post because I would love to give them credit for this. But they said if you don't know what you're doing and you're doing it as hard as you possibly can, then you're a spaz. I thought that was a really simple way to put it. If you don't know what you're doing and you're doing it as hard as humanly possible, then you're a spaz. And I think that's true. That can be true at a white belt level. There are blue belt spazzes, purple belt spazzes, brown belt spazzes, black belt spazzes. We're not going to worry about those today, but at a white belt level, if you don't know what you're doing and you're doing it as explosively and with as much aggression as possible, then you're a spaz. Now, we have to define explosiveness and aggression and the idea of how much is possible, right? So if I don't know any guard passes, but I know I have to pass somebody's legs to get on top of them, and that's the mission, right? At a white belt level, get on top of the guy. If I'm going as hard as I possibly can to do that, and I'm also putting my partner's health at risk, maybe I accidentally kick them in the face, or I kick somebody else in the face, or I slip and I drop an elbow on them, or when I pass I accidentally headbutt them, or I poke them in the eye, or when I grab their arm, I rip out a whole patch of armpit hair. I put my hand on the collar and I rip out a patch of mullet. Then all these things combined are a good sign that you're being spazzy. So what I would suggest is, if you don't know what you're doing, stop during the roll if possible and ask your partner or ask somebody for feedback. Like, just something simple. What's one move I can do from here? If that's not possible, then I would say slow down and try and think your way through the position. Even if it doesn't work, even if you get your back taken, you get swept, you get your guard passed, move, do stuff, but use half of what you could possibly use and try and think your way through the position. So if you can go 100%, try to go 50% and see what happens, right? If you have success being super aggressive and super explosive, passing guards of other white belts or blue belts, getting people in chokes, doing stuff to other people, if you're successful with that, then my challenge to you is to try and do the same exact thing to the same people using a little bit less energy and a little bit less every single time. See how far you can go, how far you can dial it down and still get the job done, right? And I think using that mentality of how little energy can I do to get the job done is something that will help you avoid being a spaz. So my two answers for white belts: get feedback from your training partners, get feedback from your teacher. Most of the time they'll be happy to help, happy to let you know. Don't be offended, don't take it personally, just take it as advice that is meant to make you better. My second piece of advice is, if you are successful doing something with 100% intensity, then try and do it with 80%, and the next time do it with 70%, and go as low as you can while still being successful. And then of course constantly try and get a better idea of how the technique works, how to accomplish your goals, and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will see you guys next Wednesday. I'm filming new video log every Wednesday, so stay tuned. Thank you. Bye.